get right. Too many left in these leagues, but I ain't gonna leave, I'ma get right. Down to the bottom and scratch it for all the...
Hey everybody, Adam Rank here.
What's up everybody, it's Marcus Grant.
This is AJ Dillon of the Green Bay Packers.
I gotta give a shout out to y'all at Get Right Fantasy.
If you are not subscribed, what are you waiting for? Do you want to lose your league?
Our league, check out the Get Right Fantasy Network.
You got to get right with the Get Right Fantasy Network.
And best of luck with your podcast. Appreciate the support.
And you're tuned in to watch my boys at Get Right Fantasy Network. Get you right. Enjoy the show.
But I tune in every Friday. Strategies provided, I will lock in every way. So go and roll your sleeves up. Yeah, go and roll your sleeves up. And I'm getting down, cause I roll my sleeves up. And I'm getting right, cause I roll my sleeves up.
What up? What up? What up, world? Welcome to the Get Right Fantasy Network. I am Mike Herrick, aka Classic Mike, and tonight I'm here with my good buddy Kendall from the Fantasy Football Tavern. What's going on, brother? How you doing?
Hey, it's another Friday, man. Glad to be talking some football. Hopefully, you still have a couple of healthy players left on your team. We can at least talk about them a little bit. It's gonna be all right.
Hopefully. I had one league where I had 5 guys that are either out or gonna be out or doubtful or something. So everyone has it. Don't worry. You're not the only one out there. We'll get you through it. We promise. Last night, we started off week 3 with the Patriots at the Jets. We're going to give our quick reactions in a minute about that game. First, just a quick breakdown of tonight's show. Tonight, we're going to be breaking down 7 of the Sunday games. In our case, we're going to be doing all the morning or 1 o'clock games if you're from the East Coast, as well as giving you guys one prop from each game that we both like, using, of course, Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy is the best and easiest place to play fantasy sports. We enjoy their best ball draft tournaments and live stream them all off season. Best ball leagues are the leagues where you draft your team and that's it. There's no season-long commitment, no waivers, no trades, and no weekly lineup sets. You can draft hundreds of hundreds of teams if you really want to. I know I have a few. And if anything, you can help prepare to understand the values of ADP for your regular home leagues. Now that we're in season, we really enjoy doing the pick'em contest, and that's why we're going to give you some of the props from that, where we can just simply pick higher, lower on player stats like total yards and touchdowns. This week, if you guys sign up using the promo code GETRIGHT, they will have a CeeDee Lamb 0.5 total yards. So make sure you guys use the promo code GETRIGHT right there in the states that allow it. Go sign up using our promo code. Not only will you receive a 50% deposit match, now up to $1,000 in bonus cash. Any deposit exceeding $2,000 will be capped at $1,000 in bonus cash. So visit underdogfantasy.com or download the fastest growing, and make sure to download the fastest growing app for your app store now. So make sure you guys are doing that. Use promo code GETRIGHT. Then we're going to have a live Q&A at the end of the show. So please make sure you guys are dropping your questions in the chat as we go. Don't worry, I'm going to remind you guys as well. We're going to answer all your questions at the very end of the show. If your particular question goes towards something that we are talking about in a matchup, we'll bring it up. No problem. But at the end of the day, we're going to answer all your live questions at the very end. If you guys want, we also have super chats available as well. So if you have a question that you want answered right away, be sure to use the super chat and we will stop the show just for you and we will take care of that. We will answer everything that you might need right then and there. But no, if we're in the middle of if we're talking in the middle of getting your thing, don't worry, you're the next topic. I don't want people thinking it's like, stop. No, I'm going to give everybody a chance to, get their take in and then we'll go from there. Also, make sure for those that are new to the show, check out our lineup. We are here every freaking day. I know it doesn't say Saturday, but soon we're going to have a show on Saturday as well. It's going to be the Sweet Life, and we're also thinking of another show too. So we got a lot of things in the works. A couple things are, working out. Next show is going to be on Sunday. You're going to be with me with actives and inactives at, Sunday at 8 o'clock Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern. I don't know why he did this all for Pacific time. Damn West Coast people. Tuesday, we have Tycoon going into the fantasy boardroom at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern. And then we have Wednesday, Rasta and Frank will host their roster management show, trade talk, buy, sell, hold targets. That's going to be at 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 a.m. Eastern. Thursday night, Phil is going to be hosting his extra point leading up to Thursday Night Football. Make sure you guys check him out. He's going to be at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, right before the Thursday night game. And then, of course, we have our 2 shows that go on every Friday night. We're going to have me and Kendall. We're going to be here doing part 1. And then we're going to have Phil and Rasta doing part 2. So make sure you guys check that out. So now what we're going to do is break down the good, the bad, and the ugly of the Jets win over the Patriots 24-3. So right now, I mean, the biggest takes from that game, wow. One, Patriots, they didn't do well. They are what they thought. They are what we thought they were. I mean, they might have done okay in the last couple of games prior to this, but they don't look what they should have. Aaron Rodgers looked solid, 281 yards, 2 touchdowns, was playing, very effective. Mike Williams, Alan Lazard, both look good. Both had 3 receptions. Lazard, 3rd touchdown of the year. This offense seemed to be moving in a direction we thought that they could be last year prior to the 4 plays. Everything was like, oh my God, exciting. Oh, Braylon Allen. I don't know about you. I'm going to ask you, do you feel like I feel like he can be a viable flex option? What about you? Do you think he can be a flex option moving forward?
Oh, 100%. I've been on Braylon Allen pretty much since the preseason. The landing spot was obviously a heartbreaker, as he was a guy I was super, super high on just as a pure talent standpoint.
100%.
But yeah, I think I think for them to be a viable standalone talent, right? Obviously has to get on the field. Okay, well, getting on the field very early was the dominant clear RB2 in camp. Right. And it's a team that wants to be fairly run heavy, I think, and just control the game. It's not they want to be 100%. Run heavy, but they want to control the tempo. And they have a great defense, right? They looked a little shaky, but I think that the personnel is still there. They'll figure it out. So, are there times where they're just going to put some teams away where you're going to see a lot of Braylon Allen in the 4th quarter because they do eye up a playoff run? Absolutely. And then the cherry on the cake is that he's getting a lot of, when he's in the game, there's a chance to catch passes. There's a chance for them to be valuable. And he had a little bit of explosiveness when he came into the game. So, yeah, I think he's absolutely a good flex play. We'll see how much goal line usage he gets. But I think he's a guy that you could throw in and pretty reasonably get yourself, maybe 8 points. We'll see what his usage kind of goes going forward. But I like him a lot more than some of these middling wide receivers and offenses that the quarterback play looks abysmal, where you need a lot of things to go right. You don't need much for Braylon Allen to go right.
No. Yeah. I mean, honestly, he got 3 targets. He's averaged, I think, close to 2.5 per game. His snap counts have only gone up and are close to 30% at this point. Last night it was 28, but it was really, I mean, they were blowing him out and they brought in the 3rd and, they were like, get out of there. If anything, in my opinion, it only helps Breece Hall. At the end of the day, I don't even think it hurts him. Maybe takes away a touchdown or 2, but it ultimately helps because at the end of the day, it gives Breece a little bit of rest and it gives, they have a solid number 2 back that can really help. What about the wide receivers for the Jets? How are you feeling about everybody but Garrett Wilson? How are we feeling about Mike Williams, Lazard, and their production?
So I think I'm at a place with Mike Williams until I see otherwise. He's not in my lineup. Like, I think he'll get more and more involved.
Yeah,
but with the way I see them getting the running backs having such a high target share, more reliable options kind of popping up, I don't see Mike Williams as just being super involved. Maybe he can get there. I'm saying he's still someone I might give him another week or 2, but there's other players I would be willing to drop him for at this point. He's just not holding that space. Particularly, I think that game, at least I'm more bought into that Lazard's a thing. Do I think he's like a big thing? No. But if you're asking me, like, do I trust that Lazard is going to get more valuable targets more consistently than I believe in, like, say, Quentin Johnston is more than kind of a 1-week wonder? I would have said Quentin previously, but now just kind of looking at how the usage, the types of routes he was running, how Rodgers trusted him in a couple of spots now. I think Lazard is going to be like a Tyler Lockett light, where he's just good, clean, consistent production, where I thought he was going to be a little more boom bust because Mike Williams was coming back. So Lazard's more of a real thing for me. Again, not a high-end flex because of the other usage, but I think he might be a real player finally.
Nice. I like it. Yeah, maybe we'll be able to see it now that, Rodgers is functioning at a pretty good level. I mean, he looked pretty good and pretty solid. They did lose Moses on the right tackle, but, it didn't seem to slow anything down. But they seem to do pretty well overall. The next is the bad. I mean, if we're going to talk about the Jets being good, the Patriots look bad. Stevenson was second in the league with running back touches prior to this week. I think he had over 50 prior to getting into this week. He had a fumble lost, 6 rush attempts, and only 26 or 28 yards, if memory serves me. And he was hurt halfway through the game. It looked like his hand. I didn't watch the whole thing, but I saw something with them screwing with his hand. I could be wrong. But it's hard to, it's also hard to trust the wide receivers on this team. So that pretty much everything goes through him and Antonio Gibson, who looked okay. He didn't look great, but it's like the old regime is back, and it's like they're faulting the wide receiver, but the running back is okay. Like you never wanted to draft a Patriots running back in the days of Belichick, because they never knew what to do. But the wide receiver, you knew what to do. Now it's the opposite, it seems, and that we'll see what happens. How do you see Stevenson moving forward after his 2 really good weeks and then this one really bad week?
So my biggest takeaway with Stevenson is I think it's more of a let's go back now that we've seen the crazy good game and we've seen the floor game, right? Yeah. The reality was he was getting drafted in drafts because we thought the team might be abysmal despite his talent, right? The real thing to take away is he doesn't have the floor that we think he does. Nobody on the team has a safe floor, and these games are going to happen. Sometimes in the wrong matchups too. I mean, because the team is that bad, it's the NFL. The worst team can still have a good day and can put them into a pretty bad spot. So I think there's going to be plenty of brighter days, like some legitimate upside 20-point game weeks for Ramondre because of the full 3-down usage he can have. But I think this game's a reminder that he has absolutely no floor. I don't think he's going to be as reliable of an RB2 as you want. You're overall happy. Be happy that he has the ceiling that he does more than you're disappointed that he has the floor he does. You got him where you drafted him because of that being baked in. And I think it's just a come down to earth check for him. I'll tell you what, though, going into a pretty ugly matchup in week 4 as well, though, I think there's a good chance that if he has a bad game this upcoming week, he could be a good buy low for me.
Okay.
Right. I want to see I'll look into week 4 and kind of see where he's at. Obviously, bad game last week. If he has a bad one this week, I'd see him more as a buy low than a guy that I'm completely getting rid of.
Fair enough. Believe me, I got a couple of offers from our good buddy right here, good old Anthony Rasta over here. What up, fellas? Was making the last minute rankings update for part 2. So make sure you guys stick around and check out part 2 at 11 o'clock. But yeah, I mean, I've been mulling it over. I still like Stevenson a lot. I can see him being used like he did in the first 2 games. Hopefully that continues and they see what worked and what didn't. And, Stevenson seemed to be working for a minute. It might have been just the matchup, but, Jets defense might be a little bit better than what people think, to be fair. The ugly for this particular game, I mean, to be, beyond the wide receiver talk, beyond, Ramondre Stevenson, the biggest thing for Dynasty owners is seeing Drake May in his first, bit of opportunity. He only had 1 series. He got it at the very end of the game, but he looked dreadful. He looked horrible. He looked like he was a deer in headlights, didn't know what to do. If I'm an owner of Drake May in that type of scenario, I'm a little bit shaky and I might want to get rid of him or find a way to, package him in somewhere and get, send him on his way and find something else. That's just me. He did not look like anybody that was willing. He was holding on to the ball forever. Not on board. I know you were a big Drake May fan.
I'm in there, but I was a big Drake May fan because, in my opinion, we are not very elite yet, the fantasy football community at the high level, right? The of us that spend way too much time on it, right?
Yeah.
We're still not there at predicting rookie quarterbacks from like a dynasty
Fair enough.
captain perspective, right? We get down to like, hey, I think this is the right process, right? And I think most fantasy football communities end up kind of agreeing. The hot takes aren't as hot as they used to be on quarterbacks. But my whole thing is I just want an elite ceiling and I want a path to get there. And for him, I saw the Justin Herbert comp. I saw pretty sweet release, little bit of legs. I think having at least some legs in the modern NFL is a huge, huge thing. You don't have to be able to run everywhere, but the ability to create some opportunity, I think, is huge, where every running back can touch passes and things like that. So I don't know. I'm not off on him. I think he's good. My take on him being way better than JJ McCarthy and it not being about, the injury is obviously affecting that. But I'm still looking at Drake May more as I want to buy him low, because for me, I was looking at this is a washed season for him anyways. He has no expectations.
They need at least 2 years and weapons around him.
As the owner, would I have preferred him to look way better?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Was I planning on starting him this year? And am I fine with the rookies getting a little better? Yeah, I'm still dying on the Drake May hill, but that was a little nerve-wracking. And now I wanted to see like one good play.
Just one pass.
Hey, it'll be okay. And I never saw it. So
no,
take that with a grain of salt, but I'm not jumping off the ship yet.
Okay. Fair enough. All right. So now we're going to get into our start sit questions. Make sure you guys are throwing your questions in the chat. We're going to get to all those questions at the very end. So make sure you guys do that. Also, make sure you guys are using the super chats if you guys want us to get to your question right then and there. First, we're going to be talking about the Giants at the Browns. Giants are going to be going to Cleveland. Cleveland is favored by 6.5 points here. The over-under for this game is 38.5. Now, of course, we get Ray with a question going, Mike, how about Neighbors? Well, yes, you're going to start Neighbors this week. He did very well last week. Led the team in targets, did very well as a rookie. I think he had one of the best rookie performances to start, if I remember correctly. Then we had Jerome Ford and Deontay Foreman. I mean, come on. Giants have let up at least 90 yards or more on the ground in the last 2 games to running backs, so you can't not, exploit that particular matchup. And then, of course, Jerry Jeudy. I mean, he's starting to become relevant. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, if it's ever going to be, if we're going to see this passing attack do something, like the Giants have to be kind of a test to see, hey, on a matchup where you should be able to do anything you want to do, right?
Yeah.
Or what is that going to look like? So for me, it's more of a, okay, is the matchup? I think the matchup is what it is, right? I think it's a good litmus test. I don't think the Giants, good, bad day, I just don't think they have the personnel
go against
to put up a good fight.
Yeah.
So with that, I want to see if Singletary is, I want to see what he ends up doing in a bad matchup on the other side. But for like the Jeudy question, right? I like Judy's involvement. His target share is sitting around 20%. I think his air yards were pretty up there too, like 31. I think point something percent of the total air yards.
Yeah.
I think Cooper has his best days are behind him. He's still a decent route runner, but I think Jeudy just might be. I like these we've talked about like ambiguous running back fields before. I think this is an ambiguous wide receiver core. Mm-hmm. Where Jeudy could be like the least expensive wide receiver 1, or it could be in these situations where the wide receiver 1, just the coverage against them, you'd rather have the wide receiver 2. Like situations where we've seen these hyper condensed like 2-weapon offenses, especially with Njoku out. Sometimes the wide receiver 2 ends up eating a lot better, a lot more consistently. I think we could be looking at that. So I'm starting Jeudy in a lot of like I have to start somebody situations. I'm starting him over Wan'Dale. In this particular spot, just to give you an idea of where he's at in my rankings. This game is going to be very telling for me, though, because if Jeudy can't put up a reasonable showing in this type of a matchup, you're not going to find a much better spot. So he's, it's kind of a make or break game for how I'm choosing my flex spot. And he's definitely one of the players I'm looking at. Singletary being the other one. Is he matchup dependent, right? Can you start him in bad matchups? This is an awful matchup. How does he do?
I think this is a huge test for the line. I mean, this is honestly, I think this is the biggest test for the offensive line for the Giants. The last few weeks, they have actually looked pretty well overall. Their particular offensive line has gotten Singletary through. He opened up holes. Everything seemed to be moving okay. But now the biggest deal is, I do think Singletary could be useful in this game. He'll definitely be used in the passing game. I think Daniel Jones is going to have to check down more than you think. Neighbors,
I'm hoping so. Singletary last week, we said he would, and then he had one target, and I thought that was kind of an aberration. For me, I'm looking at the same thing. Is he on paper? We look at him as a pass catching back, maybe not the best, but certainly beyond capable. That's kind of his area. I was surprised by the usage last week. Are you? What do you think his line is on the receiving game? Do you really see it bouncing back, or are you waiting and seeing?
2.5 is probably the line for him. That's about what I would say. So for me, I definitely see him getting at least 4. This particular defense that they're facing is a pass rushing, like fast, strong defensive line that they're going to have to be going against. Myles Garrett can make your life miserable. So in this particular case, I do see this as being more of a game where a guy like Wan'Dale Robinson might be involved a little bit more than Neighbors. Neighbors seems to be he's very talented. I'm not taking that away from him, but I do think that Denzel Ward is a better corner than what he has faced previous. No one on Minnesota was really worth it. There's no one in Washington. He's going to be going against Denzel Ward, who is one of the top corners in the league. He's a top 10 corner. So this is going to be a big test for Neighbors in a lot of ways. But I do think that Daniel Jones tends to go, oh, no, I can't throw him the ball because he's a good corner. I'm going to throw it to the guy that's, a little bit shorter. So I do think he's going to go for Wan'Dale a little bit more in this particular game. I think the one side of the ball that I'm a little bit worried about is from last week. We got to see Deontay Foreman get a little bit more moved into the Cleveland offense. And he went from like nothing to almost 50% of the touch from, this game, the last game that they had. So are you worried about this cutting into, Ford's workload, or, which guy are you more comfortable starting?
I mean, I'm still much more comfortable starting Ford. I think he's the better back. We saw that in the game where he was much more efficient. And the passing work is clearly pretty big right now, seeing some large target numbers from him. But no, it significantly worried me that the whole, from a fantasy standpoint, the whole reason that we were all in on Ford is he should be a mammoth when it comes to overall volume, 3 down volume for a big part of the season. And then who knows when Chubb comes back, probably at least half the work.
I'd say weeks 6
to something along that, right? And that's an early return depending on the injury. So that's why we liked Ford. If you're telling me that now he's going to be a 50-50 back, where a lot of he's going to have less opportunity to be in the field with an impending Chubb coming back at some point, you're going to go from 2 backs to 3 backs. That takes Ford, from like usable later on, just not as good when Chubb comes back, to potentially unusable. And his upside in offense that looks bad already right now, maybe he just lost the goal line work. So no, that's a huge deal for me. I want to see the snap shares in this next game, but I am benching Ford everywhere I can, even in this matchup, which should be an absolute layup for him.
Oh, yeah.
If that layup ends up being a 50-50 spread of the ball, I think that really hurts him. Maybe he's still more relevant in PPR with how many passes he can probably grab. But no, last week was pretty damning on his season-long value for me. I'm honestly to the point where I'm looking to trade him. I'll put it that way. I'm putting him on the block everywhere, and I would sell a little bit lower than I'm comfortable with to get something nicer at wide receiver probably.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair enough. To move us along, must sit. I'm sitting both quarterbacks. Honestly, 2 reasons. Daniel Jones is going to be running for his life for Myles Garrett. And I think Watson's going to be running for his life too, because he doesn't have his 2 best starting right tackle and left tackle available. So I think this is going to be one of those really defensive games that it's going to be low scoring.
Start
lot
both
of these-
defenses. I think
Yeah.
both defenses are actually fully in play.
Yeah, I think you can definitely play both without a problem. So for our prop bets, one that I like is one I already kind of described already. Right now, that's higher than 3.5 receptions for Wan'Dale Robinson. I do think that Daniel Jones is going to kind of see this particular scenario, and Wan'Dale is a little more in that intermediate short route to help out Daniel Jones for those checkdowns. So I really do think Wan'Dale can be heavily involved in this game. What about you, Kendall?
I like that one quite a bit, actually. That was similar to one I put out last week on him. On the Cleveland side of the ball, I mentioned one of the things I'm looking for in this game is Jerry Jeudy's usage in what I think is a reasonable matchup for him. So I think this is going to be one of the cheaper numbers we see Jerry Jeudy at if things break the way I think they're going to break for him. So I think his numbers are pretty attainable. Even with a pretty low over-under, I think these numbers are attainable. So I'm going higher than 39.5 receiving yards. And I'm going to parlay that just because it's going to make a lot of sense to do so with higher than 3.5 receptions. I really like that number, 3.5 in particular. I was looking over at Amari to see what his spread might be since he's kind of a buy low target for me in
like
prop bets
4.
to see if he hit him for 4 being a free square where I win, not push. I think is what's really leaning me into this. So, I mean, I got to get 40 receiving yards with a guy like Jerry Jeudy. He doesn't have to do everything super close to the line of scrimmage. He has a little bit of yak in him. I don't think he needs, all 4 catches to get across the line.
Yeah.
And I think he's going to run, Amari Cooper, I think about more than 50% of his routes have uncatchable passes getting thrown his way. I think Jerry Jeudy's his route tree is a little more catchable. So
yeah,
I like this as a bet. It's not a smash bet for me where it's not like a full free square, but I think it's pretty profitable for his spot. And then just I threw one more out there because I do think it feels like a gross bet because it's such a small number, but I think Devin Singletary lower than 55 rushing yards is a disappointing bet, but I think one I have to make. I just don't see a ton of outcomes where he has a big rushing yardage day, let alone a reasonable one. And I could see this as a game where it's just not working for him. He has to pass protect a lot. Maybe some of the other backs get mixed in and other things happen. So I see a lot of worlds where he only gets 10 to 12 touches and he's barely able to get 40 yards. And I see those being overwhelmingly more favorable than him having a 60, 70-yard game. So I hate betting lowers, but I try to convince myself if you're not betting a couple of lowers, you probably got to look at all the overs that you're betting, and tame it down a little bit, right? Get a little more balance to it. And this is one of the bets that's kind of keeping this game in balance for me.
Okay, fair enough. So, Nino, don't worry. We will answer questions, but we are going to be answering them all at the very end. So make sure you guys throw your questions in the chat. We will get to it at the very end of the show once we're done with breaking down all the teams. If you want, you guys can use Super Chats. Super Chats will get you guys to have us stop the show, and we will answer that question right away. So don't worry. We will do that. Next, we're going to be talking about the Bears at the Colts. Indy is favored by 1 in this particular game. Over under is 43.5. Must starts in this game. I mean, you're gonna have to do Anthony Richardson. That's a must. JT, definitely, for sure. Swift, I think, is a very good play. DJ Moore, I think in deeper leagues, we might be able to play Alec Pierce here. I think this is more of a deeper league play. I mean, he has a touchdown and 8 receptions, 180, yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 touchdowns in 2 games. I mean, he's being used pretty well, and he seems to be the go-to target for Anthony Richardson at this point.
Half his targets are going to have an 8 out of 50. So if he catches half of his targets, it's probably for 50 and a touchdown. So
yeah,
I see the argument. I like that you brought him up, actually.
Well, the other thing about him that I didn't know, apparently in warm-ups, he's been wearing a Alec Pierce shirt. Like it's like his name on it and like a whole printout of him and stuff. Like he seems to be like really close with Alex Pierce.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that could be something, or it could be Michael Pittman. Michael Pittman's nursing a back and foot injury, maybe to keeping an eye on. Like you might want to keep a little bit of a close eye on this. He will play. He's questionable, of course, but he will be playing. But it only got brought up recently, so that's just something that you might want to, keep in mind. Sitting. Sorry, Kendall. I'm sitting. Caleb Williams.
Don't
sitting,
apologize. If anything, I'm on the. I overreact with this kind of a thing because people immediately go to like, oh, but the talent. No, I'm not even like benching him. He's off my roster. Caleb Williams isn't. These things don't get fixed that quickly, so he's not just a sit for me. I'm dropping him. I'm taking a chance on basically any of the guys that are showing something. I would, even at this point, I would rather take like a Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, fair enough.
Weekly upside, where he was one that a lot of people picked up. Darnold, a lot of people picked up Carr. I'm reaching even deeper than that. I like Geno over him. I like some of these other guys. So unfortunately, he's the one rookie that's not using his legs in a productive fashion, and we're playing fantasy football here, and I need that for him to be viable.
Yeah, I mean he's definitely trying to stay alive and make plays. You can see that he's very good at getting out of the pocket. He's very good at scrambling to try to get out of it, but he just can't do anything else after that. And everything just seems to be work for him instead of actually being something that is fun and able to do without thinking about it. He's definitely got to tone it down a bit. Cole Kmet, we're not starting here. Adon, AD Mitchell, you're not starting until he's involved a little bit more.
It's too early. Love him as a stash. I think he's got actual legit upside when he takes on a role later in the year.
Yeah, but Josh Downs coming back, he might get a little bit phased out. But I think with Michael Pittman being hurt, he might be a little bit involved too. So we're gonna see what happens, but you're not playing him this week. Keenan Allen we already know he's out, so you're not playing him. How do you feel about Rome Odunze?
I'm still not there on Rome yet, mostly because I'm not there on Caleb yet. It feels like a spot where I could easily see the Rome having 5-6 targets, but because he's a red zone threat and he can be a deep threat, I can see him having a decent game. I'm just not betting on it. There's a lot of flexes we've already mentioned that feel like they have a little bit more upside and have the target share. The target share for the Bears could easily, and I think it should. I think Swift should catch 4 or 5 passes. I think that's the way the offense should work. A lot like how the Jets controlled the pace of the game, having so many dump offs to the running back. I think the Bears need to go in that direction a little bit. And I just think the Bears have just like random wide receiver depth. They actually have some decent wide receiver threes, like just littered all over the place. Do. We have 2 tight ends that can catch the ball. I'm not saying I don't like Rome. I'm just saying, guys, we've seen enough of the Bears, even for people that aren't big Bears fans. They've just not been one where you can rely on the game happening. I just don't see it yet. So I think Rome's a pass for me on a day where if he has 50 yards and 3-4 catches, you're happy. And if that's what I'm happy with out of my flex, I think I can go for something else. Yeah. In like a standard league, or in leagues that have like a 40 plus passing, like a receiving touchdown bonus, maybe you start getting into options, right? But I think my ranking on Rome is probably lower than the consensus experts, I think.
Okay. I mean, right now, consensus has him roughly around 46. So I would definitely see him being a little bit lower than that, for sure. So we're gonna go right into our prop bet. For me, this is actually a good question for this. Worthy or more?
I'm taking Worthy over Rome by Rome.
Sorry.
I think the touchdown upside is higher. I think the chance that one play is meaningful enough to get you what you need is way higher on Worthy. I trust the offensive ecosystem to if you were to give me this spot 10 times or 50 times, I think the plus offense is always going to make this a better fantasy call than Rome, where Rome, it just, this play does not work out very often for Rome. I'm almost betting against it if I can.
Yeah. I mean, in the last game after the first game, funny. Thanks for bringing that up there, big guy. Yeah, we're on this one. So last game for Xavier Worthy, I mean, he was only, he had 4 targets, but 2 for 17. a little bit nuts. I wouldn't go with that. I'd go with Rome too, of course. So we're gonna go right into our prop bets. For me, it's higher than 1.5 receptions for Jonathan Taylor. The reason being is because of what we saw what we saw this week in general. They asked him about why he wasn't used in the pass game, and I'm going against that narrative. And the reason being is I think they're going to involve him in the passing game now. I think it was one of those things where they were like, "Oh crap, we don't involve him. We have 3 other guys." Jonathan Taylor was very, very diplomatic with it and said, "Oh, we have other guys on this team that can do great things." Very, very cool about it. But I do think that they're going to try to involve him a little more in the passing game. He does have good hands and can be involved. So I'm going to take the risk a little bit. It's at 1.5. I'm going to go with the upper or the higher on this and, see what happens.
Yeah, actually, I really like that call a lot. I think it's a similar narrative to like David Montgomery, who always has a low number, and I like taking it. I don't think he's going to catch 6 passes, but being a pass catcher and having the ability to catch a pass is 2 very different things. And I think he's very capable. It's not super adept, but I think there's teams shouldn't be looking at it like, is he a good pass catcher or not? To see the guy for that. It's like, do you want to find a way to get the ball into the hands of one of your most efficient weapons?
Exactly.
And he should be mixed into that part of the game because ideally, the Colts want to run the ball 25 plus times a game anyway. They already want to give the ball JT a million times. I think they're making a mistake by not. I think they'll figure it out themselves too. They'll realize well, it's not like it's really a pass. It's just we're finding a way to get him in a better matchup with the ball in his hand. So yeah, I like that. I think it's going to hit 2 a little bit more often than it hits 1.
Yep.
My prop, I got to say, I can't take that one. I was actually thinking about that one myself. I want to bet this game. I like this one quite a bit. I got 2. First one is I think just it's definitely a buy the low number in a situation where I just think it's too low for an alpha wide receiver 1. I like DJ Moore higher than 5 catches.
Okay.
5's a hard number. I wish it was 4.5, right? 5 means I do need the full 6, but he's got 18 targets over the last 2 games, 10 and 8, so averaging 9. But, when you're averaging 9-10 targets a game and you're clearly the alpha, Keenan's been injured, is already out. I think you're going to have to hyper-target your one that has a good separator score that isn't just hyper-targeted but can get open at various levels of the field. And you just combine that with Keenan's out. This got to be hyper-dense. I think he's going to get 10 to 12 targets. 9's probably his floor, and I think he's going to catch 6 to 8 of them, right? And I think 6 catches is just legitimately his floor. Maybe there's some percentage of the time he catches 4 and 5, but I think it's a really low number. So I really like this bet. I'd throw a little extra juice on that. I think it's almost free. The game scripts where he doesn't have 5 catches, just try to put together a box score where it doesn't work. You're giving Cole Kmet a bunch of random work. You're giving Swift a hell of a day. You got to make a lot of stuff stretch. The other one is Anthony Richardson higher than 40.5 rushing yards.
Okay.
I just like this one because I think more often than not, he's just going to be a guy that's always good for 50 rushing yards, and the number is just a little bit low right now. But within a couple of weeks of seeing him play, I think his average is just higher than what we've seen on paper. And so this is just a portfolio play. This is I think his future narrative game script. If you kind of look at Lamar's numbers historically and what he's able to do, I think usually Lamar's numbers are a little bit higher than this when you see his bets. Lamar's bets end up being more close to 50 for his average rushing yards per game. So it just feels more like his floor. And the Bears have a good defense. I think that's why the number is what it is. But there's just going to be enough. And when he runs, it's not like he's just doing a Jalen Hurts go get 10, 12. I think he's got enough where he can rip one off for 20 or 30 and be most of the way there. And the other ones can just incidentally happen because I was going to get sacked, but now that's just 10.
Yeah, 100%.
So I like those 2 bets quite a bit. I'm locking those in for sure.
Okay, nice. So next we're going to be going into the Texans at the Vikings. Make sure if you guys have any questions, throw them in the chat. We're going to be getting into it at the very end of the show. But if you have any questions that you want answered right away, don't hesitate to use that super chat, and we will stop just for you guys. So Texans are going to be at the Vikings. Houston is favored by 1.5 points. The over-under is 46 points.
Man, who would have thought that start of the year that this would be almost a pick 'em?
Oh, yeah. Oh, for sure.
Oh, man.
So must starts in this game. Of course, it's going to be CJ Stroud. You're definitely going to, Nico Collins, he had a hip and foot injury, but he's fine. He was full today. He didn't practice Wednesday and everybody freaked out. He's fine. Stephon Diggs is another guy. This is a good revenge game for him, for those that don't know. JJ thigh contusion. He should be okay. He practiced in full. He said he was going to play. Everything's good to go. Chandler Jones, or sorry, I said Chandler Jones because it said Chandler Jones. What about Ty Chandler and Aaron Jones? Are you starting both of these guys, or is there one that you like better than the other?
Chandler, I want to see it more consistently. I mean,
Okay.
Chandler got a lot of those points. I just don't think usually in this spot, like I want to see the guy in Chandler's situation be stepping more into a passing role. I just don't see it. I think Aaron Jones has that totally locked up. So where I'm less chasing the box score usage on Chandler because I think he's got a limited upside in what he can do for kind of how that's going to function. That being said, if he's on my team, I still think this is probably a decent spot for him.
Okay.
Chandler's, I look at him more as a handcuff, less than a standalone play. You should be able to find something, especially at wide receiver. I think there's a lot of options that are a little bit nicer. Jones, for sure, I'm rolling him in there. The reason I drafted him in a couple of spots is because what do you think it was 5 on 6 targets last week? That kind of usage is why I like him, right?
Okay.
Where Ramondre had a super, super low floor. I like that if he's healthy, his floor is I'm still going to get a lot of targets. And I think that keeps him a locked in RB2.
Okay. Fair enough. I mean, I'm not particularly okay with playing at either one because I'm just not. I just don't like either of them in this offense. I don't particularly think they're anything special. So for me, I try to avoid if possible. I didn't draft a lot of these guys, so that's why I don't play them. I stayed away from those two in a lot of my drafts. So one guy that we know that's going to be out and you're going to be sitting is Jordan Addison. He's going to be out for this game. I think you can, in this case, bench Dalton Schultz for now. I think he's just low on the tight end, the tight end tier list that it's I'm just not interested at this point. We see that Stroud tends to focus a little bit more on Collins, Diggs, and trying to get Tank Dell involved as well. So I really do think that he's an okay start, but he's more of a tight end 2 than he is a tight end 1, in my opinion.
Yeah. And now knowing that the rushing game is better than expected, and that's going to eat up a lot of the overall offense. So yeah, Schultz is a sit for me for sure. There's so many other streamable ones.
Oh, for sure. And to be fair, we're going to also mention the fact that, of course, Joe Mixon is going to be labeled as doubtful. So he is not just already take him out of your lineup. Doubtful doesn't mean it might mean 5 to 1.
He hasn't practiced. It's the end of Friday. You're not playing.
He's not playing. I don't understand why they're labeling him as doubtful. It is what it is, but he is not playing. So who's going to be taking that spot? Well, it's not Dameon Pierce. Dameon Pierce is already out with a hamstring injury. Neither one of them practiced this week. So I don't understand why Mixon gets a doubtful tag and the other one gets out. But anyway,
right.
So right now, the 2 running backs in Houston are Cam Akers and Dare Agumawale. Is Akers startable this week? I believe he is. What about you?
I think he is too. I'm actually starting him in 2 leagues. I've got a couple leagues where I got him everywhere. I did not hit at wide receiver. I went searching and I'm still not fully there. And so, yeah, it's my, there's leagues where it's do I Carson Steele or Akers? I'm going Akers this week. I like the matchup. And honestly, I think Akers, he's looking decent. Look what J.K. Dobbins is doing. I think Akers has a real, a legitimate shot here and a good one. I think he's going to have a very solid game.
Yeah, and they were rotating him in with Mixon too last game, and they were, really getting him involved.
Yeah, he looked solid.
He looked good.
Yeah, I think he's going to be in a really, really good spot here. I think no matter what, they're going to do a timeshare here.
Oh, for
But
sure.
I think it's still going to be a ride the hot hand. The guy who's looking better is going to get
100%.
more series, and I think it's going to be him. So I'm with you.
Yeah, no, I mean, honestly, he is definitely somebody that I targeted everywhere. He was my priority for all my waivers this week because he was so lowly projected that everyone was like, "Oh, he's not going to get it." I'm like, get on my bench, friend. I will use you anywhere that I had Mixon too. So definitely loading him up. Has Sam Darnold been better or worse than you expected? I mean, we drafted a lot of guys barely drafted him. He might have been drafted at the very end if you were, in some leagues. Some picked him up at the very last second. Is he startable as a 1 QB in redraft right now?
So I'll tell you how I feel about him, because going into all of my superflex redrafts, I had a couple of targets in mind. I had 2 targets in mind for what I was acceptable, or what it would take as my QB3. And for me, the last tier was Darnold and Carr. And so I wish I had more of those leagues, because that is working out really nicely. I have a lot of injuries at quarterback in those situations. I have a lot of love, and those are coming in real handy. I'm very impressed with Darnold. I think his accuracy is fantastic. He's not making a lot of the mistakes I think he would be in close games, in important situations. It wasn't just Justin Jefferson making a Justin Jefferson play. He actually threw JJ open on a deep route. That was impressive. I like what I see. That offense is only going to get better. He's got a pass catching running back that is serviceable.
And
That's going to keep. He just looks good. He's getting Hawkinson back at some point. And although Addison is doing his best T. Higgins impression and frustrating the hell out of many people, he's going to be back at some point, and he's very talented. And so when you have all these weapons, he's already playing well with just one weapon. I think it's going to be wheels up for him this season. I'm very impressed. I've had the opportunity to who would you take, Darnold or Carr this week? I'm riding with Darnold.
Carr.
You like Carr more?
Yeah.
So I think it's a passing volume thing between the two. I like
the offense. I like what they're doing.
I'm with you. I have Carr in a lot of spots.
Yeah.
I just personally do I'm going to take the quarterback that's playing well and has Justin Jefferson versus the quarterback that it's crazy how Carr can have 30-point fantasy outings and still look like he had a bad game on the box score. It's crazy.
Yeah. But his QB rating's been high, so I don't blame you. With Sam Darnold, I like it. Last 3 games last 2 games, he's been playing really well. He did very good against decent defenses. So I don't blame you. I think Carr has just been killing it lately. It's hard to go off the hot hand.
That's tough. I think that's one you're going to get a lot on Sunday.
It's going to be I already know.
On start sit, that's going to be a big one.
He's going to be in the thumbnail for sure.
I think a good problem to have, though. That's between those quarterbacks. But to answer your question, Darnold way better than expected. And then in week 2, again, I saw a lot of the same great things. I'm in. I think this is going to be a fun game to watch. I'm very much looking forward to actually watching it.
Nice. So we're going to go into our prop bets here. For me, I'm going to be going higher than 1.5 field goals for Kymiri Fairbairn, which I know his name is a lot longer than that. But I'm going to go with Fairbairn in this one with 2 field goals. He's been killing it. He has been very good. The offense is good enough to get them down to at least the 40, 35-yard line, and they're able to kick the ball, and he's very good at it. They're playing indoors. I feel very confident in Fairbairn to be able to, kick those field goals. So that's one. My second one is more of a revenge game narrative one. If you don't believe it, you should. There's definitely some truth behind it. This is a team sport. I was listening to Jeff Mans the other day, and he was really, talking about narrative streets and, and things like that. It's there. There are times why would they pass it to Van Jefferson on 3rd and goal on the goal line? It doesn't make any sense, but it's his birthday. Why not? So you got to understand a lot of these things come into play. They do think about these things. Some coaches, some teams, some players, they all chirp in the air, hey, I want a touchdown. Believe me, it's a thing. And Diggs is one of those guys. So I'm going to have higher than 0.5 for receiving or rushing touchdown for Diggs. I'm doing it. Revenge game. That's my one big risk, but I like it.
Dude, I like it. If there's a greasy, it's going to be him. He's loud, is what I'm trying to say, right?
Yeah.
Diggs is already like a loudmouth, and yeah, the revenge narrative. I like that bet a lot.
Before you get into yours, Trex, do not worry. We will be answering questions, but please just make sure your questions there. We're going to get it to the at the very end. I don't want you to think we're ignoring you or anything like that. Just make sure you guys stay tuned. We're going to answer all live. We're going to have a live Q&A at the very end. Get all your questions in that were asked, and we're going to get to that. Don't worry. If you have a question you want me to answer right now, just throw it in, throw a super chat, and we will get to you right away. So, Kendall, what are your two?
So on this game, until he has a game below 70 receiving yards, I'm going to take higher than 70.5 receiving yards for Nico Collins.
Fair enough.
He just seems like he's going to be the yardage king for this team. So for me, I think his low game is going to happen at some point, but until then, this just seems like a bad number for how consistent he seems to be able to hit. It kind of like Amon-Ra last year, where it was just like, when his receiving props were in the 90s for yards every single game, it just felt ridiculous. And yet you're like, yeah, but he's going to have it and he did every single game. I think Nico's going to be the guy this year where, thinking like 7-8 weeks from now, like his weekly props just going to be in the 80s, right? Like that's kind of the world I'm picturing. And so right now, when it's cheaper because it's so early in the year, I think it's just a bad number that's going to get adjusted as the market bets it correctly.
Yeah.
And so Nico higher than 70.5 receiving yards, lock it in. It's a really good bet. I feel very, very strongly about it. Like I think Tank Dell probably has a signature get right game. I think this is a good spot for him.
Fair enough.
That being said, I just don't see a world where it doesn't matter. Even between all of them, Nico's going to easily hit 70, 80 receiving yards for sure. While one of the others maybe has 100, right? Okay. No problem. And then I'm going to go ahead. I would parlay that together with any of this. I like the Houston side. I think similar. It's a kind of a profile play. CJ Stroud, I'm betting the higher than 1.5 passing touchdowns. I like their passing weapons. They have a banged up running game. I think they're going to go a lot less through the running game than they would normally. And I think especially in the red zone, they're going to look to pass just a tiny bit more than they would on another script. And I think one of the big differences between CJ last year and CJ this year, in my opinion, from my projections and why I can easily have him as my quarterback 4 or 5, even without rushing, is I think he was going to be incredibly high in his touchdown passes.
100%.
Just, if you look at the weapons, unless their defense is ungodly, he's going to need to throw them. And I think, if you were to ask me, what are the odds he has 1 passing touchdown, 2 or 3? I think he's going to have 2 or 3 more often than he has 1.
Yeah,
essentially.
For sure.
I'm getting a win on the 2 and 3 right now. I think we could see a spot this year where 1.5 is a free square on him because the line is actually 2.
Yeah.
Because he ends up hitting that at a 75+% clip. And I think that's I might be. I can't forecast this season, but if it goes the way I can project it, I think you can just print money at betting the over on 1.5 on him, at least until we see Mixon back and healthy at a minimum. So I like both those bets.
All right. No, I like that. I like that a lot. And especially like you said, with Mixon out, there definitely might take a little bit more of an opportunity to pass in the red zone. So definitely can see that moving forward. So next, we're going to be talking about, of course, who we just were talking about 2 seconds ago, Eagles and the Saints. They're going to be going to New Orleans to face the Saints. Saints are favored by 2.5, and they should be. They've been, on fire. 49.5 point over under. I mean, you want everybody you can in this particular matchup just because of the high over under total. You're starting Hurts, you're starting Barkley, you're starting Smith. Just start all 3 of those guys without a problem. Derek Carr, Olave, Kamara, Shaheed, you're playing all those guys too. All those guys are viable in this particular matchup. This is probably close to the Dallas defense in, how difficult it might be, just because, Dallas is a formidable defense, but so is the Eagles. They do have, they can they can give you a little bit of trouble. But we saw what the Falcons did last week. And Falcons, as much as people might think they are a high-flying offense like me, I think they're a good offense. They still made a little bit of they gave the Eagles a lot of trouble last week. So I really do think this is a really good game to watch. Can't wait. A.J. Brown's going to be out. He has a hamstring injury. If you didn't think he was going to be out for the next 2 weeks, he's going to be out for at least the next 3 weeks. Just know that. Just know he's not going to be there. Dotson, I'm not playing until I see more. I don't want to see anything until you can tell me 100 times that he's the wide receiver too. Really? Let's go to the tape and see who was the number 2 target leader for them in that particular game on Monday night. If I remember correctly, it is Covey. Covey, Britton Covey. Have you ever heard? I don't even know who Britton. I have no idea who he was. So to be honest, I don't see it. It's not. He only had 1 target in that whole game. Covey looked better. I might be inclined to at least have Covey on my bench. I might not play him, but I definitely will have him on my bench. So do you think this Saints offense is for real? I mean, they're averaging 45.5 points per game. The first week they put up 40 on a bad Panthers team, but then came back and put up 40 or more points on the freaking Cowboys, who are predicted to be a playoff team. What do you think?
I think the offense is, I think it's for real. I think there were periods of time, even last year, where like when you saw this team in the fourth quarter when they were having to come back, I think their offense actually looked pretty good. It was the other 3 quarters when it was more of a neutral game script with a solid defense that they just looked anemic, uninspiring, fantasy vomit. You know, this team feels looser. It feels like they're like, there's like I think in fantasy football, a lot of times we look at the mismatch just pass to the running back as why don't they do it all the time? It seems to be a really efficient thing that I don't care if they know it's coming. It seems to be pretty effective, like the Rashee Rice slant at this point. Yeah. I think they're just like, yeah, they know Shaheed's really good and they know exactly how it's going to happen, right? We should still throw it because it turns out it's really tough to defend is the hard part, right? I think they're doing that a lot, and it's going to happen at a reasonable clip. And I think the offense has figured out we have a lot of ways we can put points on the board. And it's a difference between it's like an offense that's broken versus an offense that's fully clicking. Is just understanding like how it can put points on the board and how it can move the football. And they're doing it pretty effectively, and they still have pretty good weapons. I think the offense is for real. I think the efficiency in the long touchdowns come back down, right? Which I actually think helps Kamara actually be like sustain his insanity. I think long term it helps Olave. I think Shaheed's actually I popped this in the chat. We can bring it up now. Like I one of the reasons to answer your question, is it for real, is because Shaheed is for real. It's a real actual solid dynamic to the offense and gives them some free deep touchdowns, puts the defense in a bind between what Kamara can do and what he can do deep. I think it's kind of a matchup nightmare. So I think the Saints offense is for real.
Nice. No, I like it. I mean, honestly, Derek Carr had 16 passes for 284 yards. I mean, that's all you have to hear from this offense, that he only needed to complete 11. He only had completed 11 passes, and they beat them by a ridiculous margin of 44-19. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's insane. They ran the ball effectively. Ramczyk being out hasn't really affected them. If anything, it made them better, which I'm not saying that that's true because Ramczyk is a Pro Bowl type, tackle, but they have been able to run the ball effectively. They've been able to give Kamara 20 carries plus his 3 targets on top of that, and he was still productive. He had 2 touchdowns in that, he had 4 touchdowns in that game, which is insane. And they're giving him the ball near, in the red zone. So, I mean, honestly, this is something that I do see as being, an every week thing. Hopefully, I hope the Saints are doing well this year. It makes football more fun when they're doing well and everything's clicking.
Makes
They
the
have
division much more interesting if they're
Yeah.
like a real threat, like
Oh,
from the narrative
100%.
standpoint. Yeah,
And
yeah,
then
I
on
agree.
top of that, their defense is better than what people think, to be fair. Their defense is very underrated. So my last question for this, we kind of already touched on it, but I want to see it for rest of season. Derek Carr or Sam Darnold?
I will say it's splitting hairs, and my bigger take is I'm taking one or the other over
Mhm.
like a lot of other quarterbacks,
Okay.
like over Herbert, over Stafford. I'll tell you what, I mean, they're getting to a tier where it's like they're closer to Dak Prescott than they are in like the tier behind that for me. And
100%.
I'm being serious. So that's
Yeah.
a compliment to both of them. Personally, I'm taking Darnold right now,
Okay.
mostly because I think the defense is a tier below and it won't keep it up as much. There's going to be more game scripts where things have to happen. I think he gets more weapons back as the year goes on. He keeps and will always have the best weapon on his team with Justin Jefferson, which is when Justin Jefferson's your number one weapon on the team, it's going to keep the pass attempts up. It's going to keep the passing touchdowns and looks up. I think that's more sustainable than what I think the Saints offense can pivot to on occasion. And I think the Saints can do a lot more like win off of a lot of field goals and tough-nosed defense and just running the ball a ton. I think that's a more viable path for them. So I'm going Darnold for now. I want one of them. If I'm wrong, it's that like I don't think Carr is going to become bad. Like I think his ceiling might fall out a little bit, but I think he's going to be consistently good. Where like Darnold could like wake up and suck tomorrow. That's the scary part of that bet for me. But I'm going upside.
Okay. Jared Goff or Carr?
Oh, Carr.
Okay.
For sure. I dropped Goff for Baker in week 1 and never looked back. But if I still somehow had him, that would be an easy flip.
Okay. Fair enough. I kept Goff. So my prop for this particular game is the higher than 1.5 rushing yards for Derek Carr. Eagles still have a formidable defense. They still are able to get to the quarterback. It's one of those things where I do feel like he might need to, there might be situational things where man-to-man coverage deep, because they're going to definitely be putting a two deep safety on this particular group. So there might be a lot of, cover 2 man, scenarios in this where I do think that Carr might be able to get out of the pocket and get a first down and, do that a little bit consistently. I know he's more of a pocket passer, but I think he has the ability to see that and go.
He's got a stubbornness where he'll go and try to get a first down on his own sometimes.
And Taysom Hill right now is questionable and is a little banged up. I don't think they're going to want to, do too much to throw him in unless they have to. So I do think Carr might, try to get a yard here and there. So Kendall, what are yours?
I think this is a good spot because the Eagles are going to put up points. They have so many ways to do it. It's going to happen even against I think Saints are good on defense, but the Eagles have an elite number of ways they can hit you. So I like Olave for higher than 64.5 receiving yards. I think they're just going to need to put up decent passing numbers on offense. I think Olave, I like the depth of target that he's running. I think they've been able to do it without him for now, but I think Olave's been a buy low for me. I'm interested. I think the offense is sustainable, and I think Olave is going to be on the better end of that pretty quickly. It wouldn't surprise me if he puts up, 70, 80, 90 yards in this game. I like the over on 64.5. There's several scenarios where he just, again, they don't put it together.
Yeah,
I would bet the over on him having a solid game, maybe catching a deep one as well. So I like him. And then this one for me was it's the same type of bet I made with Josh Jacobs last week that I didn't get a chance to talk about. But I think Saquon, especially with AJ Brown out, is just going to be what that offense leans into a lot. I think higher than 18 rushing attempts is pretty free. I just don't see too many worlds where Saquon doesn't touch the ball 18 times. He has an elite snap share in that offense. Even if like they're up by 2 touchdowns, they're still just handing it off to Saquon pretty much every time.
Yeah.
I think the over-under on how often he touches the ball is like 20 to 22. I think 18 is just a bad number. Like it will be a bad number for guys like Jacobs, for guys like Mixon, who have an elite 75% plus snap share and just get the rock all the time. So that one, I'm actually going to parlay that with higher than 75.5 rushing yards, because if I think he's going to get the ball 20 times and I think he's going to average over 4 yards a carry, I think he's going to have 80 rushing yards if he has all those opportunities. So it just makes sense to correlate them together. I think Mr. Grapefruit here had it in chat, but yeah, I think this game could easily hit 55, 56, almost 60 on the over under. I think if it starts going that way, 2 offenses that look like no one can stop them, maybe they can't be stopped. And I think both those bets can come in. So Olave over 64.5 receiving yards, Saquon higher than 18 rushing attempts. That's been money for us so far too. We have not missed on an attempts bet at the running back position yet, I don't think. And then parlaying that with the over on the yards.
I like it. I like it a lot. Yeah, you're not wrong. I mean, Saquon has had 80%, 90% in the last 2 weeks of the snap shares for
I think
the
22
Eagles.
and 24 rushing attempts.
Yep. He's been killing it on that front, and sad. I'm just sad. Anyway, let's move to our next game. Don't forget, those that are still watching, if you have any questions about Start Sit, please make sure you guys are throwing it in the comments. We will be answering them live in a little bit once we're done breaking down all the games. If you want your question answered right away, don't forget to use those super chats. So next, we're going to be going into the Chargers, going to Pittsburgh to face the Steelers. Pittsburgh is favored by 2.5 in this game. Over-under is 35. I believe this is the lowest over-under that we have in all of it, but there's a reason for it. First and foremost, just to make people be aware, Justin Herbert is going to be a game-time decision. He is questionable at this point. He has a high ankle sprain that he told people about. He was limited in practice, but I will tell you, limited is limited. He was pretty much on the sideline with full ankle tape and just kind of standing there throwing the ball. If you looked at the videos, I don't see him. There's a good chance he doesn't play in this game. And then it goes to Easton Stick. And if anyone remembers that game, the last time he played, it was never a good sign. So Steelers defense, load them up everywhere. Must starts for the Steelers. I mean, Pickens and Harris are probably your best bets. Fields, I'm still not on board with.
I agree.
Yeah, it's just not.
We haven't seen it yet, and this is not the time I think that would change my mind if I were to fire him up. Right? Has no more than like 13.5 fantasy points last 2 games.
No, I'm definitely starting J.K. Dobbins regardless.
Oh yeah, wheels up. Wheels up.
I think it's going to be a check down game, if anything, and Dobbins will be involved in the pass game. So I'm not worried about that. Quentin Johnston, are you liking this now? Is he a thing? Do you think last week was a hoax with his 2 touchdowns, or is this the start of something really, really special? I hope it is. What about you?
I think it's neither for me. I don't think it's really special, but I don't think it's a hoax. Like, I think they need to get something out of him. He's not Treylon Burks. He's actually okay. He's just not great. And I think he's a better NFL player this year. He made the plays, right? My whole thing on him is, dude, he just drops what's right there in front of him.
Yeah, sat in the zone, got it right in the end zone. He was fine.
Yeah, look, was it like a super impressive play? No. Did he do what needed to be done? Yes. It targets, like in the NFL, I'll constantly throw this out there. It's a big part of like my philosophy on analyzing players is like targets are earned. You have to look into it, but targets are earned, and he had the targets. And they were earned. So I think there's something there, but I think the overall passing volume is going to be low. I think we have running backs that can score without needing to be within 10 yards because they can kind of make it happen deep. And I'm just a big Ladd McConkey fan. So I think QJ is going to be good. I think it's just going to be like limited opportunities, right? Like I think Darnell Mooney's really good. I think he's just going to have very limited opportunities in Atlanta. And I think he's kind of a similar version of kind of that situation. So I'm not starting him. I'm not starting either this week with the quarterback situation. But I'm rostering Quentin Johnson. I'm not completely fading it. I would roster him over Josh Palmer at this particular point, just from like let's be realistic about the upside. Palmer is not going to start having 8+ targets and be the red zone guy
And
after what we've seen.
He's nursing an injury right now.
Yeah, it's not turning around. He that's the type of guy, what you're getting from week 1, and they're at least going to try. Quentin Johnson's going to have to throw away the opportunity, but they're going to give it to him, and I want that on my team.
Yeah, and definitely this week I might be a little bit more hesitant to play them because of, like we said, with Justin Herbert most likely going to be out. We will know at 1 o'clock. So this is another opportunity for you guys to check me out at 11 o'clock on Sunday morning. I will be giving you guys that up-to-date inactives and actives at 11:30. So we will talk about that. I can answer your last second start sits as well. So we're going to go over that stuff on Sunday morning. So at this point, Herbert is in that particular boat where we will know ahead of time if he's going to be playing or not. But just my reading the tea leaves, it just doesn't look like he's playing. And that means I'm downgrading a lot of my wide receiver options for that side of the ball. Running backs, I'm okay with because they're going to focus on the run game and try to slow things down, which is, why we see the over-under being at 35. So for me, I'm going to go, and Vegas knows this too, and so does Underdog. I went in there to try to go look at props, and unfortunately there were not many to go from.
They're sparse.
They took away all the, the attempts and rushes and all this stuff, and I went with higher than 8.15 fantasy points for George Pickens. So I went with the higher. I just think that he can be involved. He's been, he can definitely get a, one catch and do well and then add a couple, here and there. I'm not a big Pickens fan in general. So, for me, picking this one was not easy. But I do think that he could, easily get at least 8 fantasy points or 8.5 fantasy points in this game. What about you, Kendall?
Yeah, I like it. I mean, I think it's a tough bet to make because I think we're in agreement that the over-under is what it is, the implied team total.
I'm not really having a lot in this game. This was just really to, fill our particular segment.
Like the metric that's the harshest against it is like total offensive plays run. The team offensive plays could be extremely low with how often both teams are going to run the ball, potentially inefficiently. And so with the overall pace of play, the overall plays that I think are going to be pretty low. That being said, I think Pickens has looked very good. It's just been the volume of targets and the value of those individual targets has been low. It feels like if the offense does anything meaningful, he's going to be just a massive part of it and always will be. And it feels like a guy that you should always count on for 10. Mm-hmm. And so you're getting 8.5. I feel less good about it because I feel like this has the game script for like it could just be like a mud bowl, like each team carries the ball 25 times for nothing. But I think in the long run the idea is, and what has to be a 35-point over under doesn't have to be a game that doesn't have some yards in it. Like it just doesn't have to be that bad. And if it's not that bad, if it slightly surprises, Pickens probably gets there. So I think it's pretty good. I'm going the other way on the other side of the ball. Where, like if the argument is like, well, it's a bad game, but Pickens is like the whole offense. I'm saying it's a bad game. This bet's off the. Well, actually, I think no. This bet's still on the board. Yeah,
it should be. Yeah,
these bets might change a little bit as long as it's on.
Yeah, just know we're doing these on Friday and not on Sunday.
Yeah, so you guys get the idea. We're talking through the betting.
Get it now,
here,
though.
Right? So, and I think if you're watching the show and you want to put some money on the games, I feel like. We're going through the games from a start-sit standpoint, but we're at least going through like here's what we think about the game script. So you can make a lot of your own plays and parlays off of what we're saying too. But Ladd lower than 7.45 fantasy points. Basically Ladd lower than 7.5 fantasy points. I don't think the passing volume is going to be huge. I think it's going to be spread around 1 million targets, and I think the touchdowns come in the running game. I see 1 million outcomes where Ladd has 3, 4, 5 fantasy points, and I see very, very few where he has more than 7, 8 fantasy points without a touchdown. And I don't think there's going to be many to go around. So he was the guy that I picked to go under. And so that's him. The part that pains me, and this is the one where I think
The
I
certainty.
love this player. We were already printing money off of him last week. This is J.K. Dobbins, if you don't know. I think we're going to make a lot of money on him this year. This game, if he doesn't get into the end zone, I think the higher lower of 11 fantasy points, I think I have to take the lower.
Yeah. No,
If
you're right.
I just think it could be a lot of checkdowns, but there's plenty of games where he catches two for 10. And I think he'll get to 70 or 80 rushing yards. And that feels great. And he looks good on like 17 carries, 16, 17 carries, 70, 75 rushing yards and like a catch. That would feel very good. That was like a Singletary game from like just the other week, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's a million ways where he just doesn't hit 11 fantasy points.
Yeah,
and it
fair
still
enough.
feels like he had a good game. So this is one of my, I hate making the bet, but usually our portfolios are weighted pretty heavy on the hires. I
Yeah.
always have to find
No,
a
this is a good lower.
disciplined, like I've got to flex my portfolio back a little bit. I own a ton of Dobbins in redraft. I think that's going to pay off a ton. I think this is a spot where I can balance that bet a little bit, and I'm going to go with the under.
Okay, fair enough. So since it's still, what we're talking about here, I wanted to bring this up. Xavier Worthy or Pickens at the flex. What would you do in this scenario?
I'm doing Pickens there for sure, regardless of format. Pickens is still a great red zone threat and a great deep threat. So his value per target is pretty high.
Yep.
He just doesn't have the touchdown upside or the overall offense that Xavier Worthy does. But I'd rather have the guy that's guaranteed 5 to 7 targets minimum and can do good things with targets versus the guy who might not get 3 targets. I'm going to take the guy who's twice as involved and already the one on his offense.
100%.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Pickens as well. I have Pickens in my rankings at 24, comparative to Xavier Worthy at 29. So make sure you guys continue to throw your questions in the chat. Like I said, we're going to be going over them at the very end. We have 2 more games we're going to be breaking down, and then we're going to be answering all your questions live. So make sure you guys throw them in the chat, and we're going to get to them at the very end. If you want your question answered right away, please make sure you guys use that super chat. We will stop the show just for your question and answer them right then and there. Or if it has to do with our particular game, we'll try to throw it in there like I did right there. So next, we're going to be talking about the Packers going to Tennessee to face the Titans. Titans are favored by 2.5 in this game. Over-under is 38 points. I mean, must starts in this game are Josh Jacobs, Pollard, Calvin Ridley, maybe Malik Willis if he starts. Right now, Jordan Love is considered is questionable. They said he's on 50-50 at this point. He could play. But I'll put this question in as, are you starting a Green Bay quarterback if they're available?
No.
Okay.
Honestly, neither. If Love gets the start, I still wouldn't play him because the risk that he doesn't play the whole game is just far too great when I don't need to take a risk. And Willis, even with the rushing upside, I mean, I would have to be so far out of options. And if it's, I think if you're talking about if it's one quarterback, then 100% no, there's other options. If we're going into the super flex, you still probably have, if you're starting him, it's probably because you have no other quarterback options whatsoever. And I am definitely firing them up over like a middling flex play. But if I have any other quarterback opportunities, I'm going to go ahead and run with them.
Okay, fair enough. You're definitely going to be starting, all the running backs here. Wide receiver, another guy that I probably am not playing is Will Levis. I just don't trust it. Really don't. Tajay Spears is good to go, but I'm still a little bit worried. He's still hurt. DeAndre Hopkins hasn't shown us anything. He was definitely a dud in a lot of scenarios, especially if you drafted him. So in this particular case, we don't really know what's going on with the quarterbacks for Green Bay right now. We have Malik Willis or Jordan Love, like we just said. Are you interested in a wide receiver in this particular game? I know I didn't mention them in the starts, but as we saw last week, they weren't really that helpful. So what do we do here? Do you sit everybody and just wait until we get Jordan Love back, or are you taking a risk with anybody?
I mean, I think it depends on team makeup, but and I know that's a bad way to answer the question, but I think the better way is I'm actively avoiding all of the Green Bay wide receivers if I have even a reasonable pivot. But because they all still have decent red zone ups, like they have okay floors and better roles, it's got to be a flex you feel pretty decent about. But I'm starting a lot of like I would probably rather start like the Jerry Judys of the world than I think I do Reed at this point in this game.
That's fair.
It sounds crazy, but there's just no way there's no way I get the Packers quarterback Malik to a level of passing yards where I would need that receiver to catch a touchdown to have any semblance of some upside. I think he's going to run the ball more, and I think they're going to lean on Jacobs, and I just think the volume and the passing game is going to be negligible. So no, I'm basically looking to sit all of them. I'd rather take any other player with sort of a plus matchup.
Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah, and I would take Levis at quarterback over Willis. It just like this is kind of like the tank goal of like both quarterbacks are awful, but I have a dynasty league. I often talk about it where I own Levis, I own Willis at this point. I also own Skylar Thompson, and Daniel Jones. And I have Jordan Love too, right? So that's kind of how I have. And my weekly like start sit question, I always pop in, half drunk and ask you on Sundays, like which of these quarterbacks am I starting? But in this case, I actually think Will Levis could have a little bit of a bounce back game.
Okay.
I benched, and we talked about it. Like I benched Ridley everywhere last week. He still got there somehow. If fluky, right? Super fluky with the 2 touchdowns, right? The one rushing, the 10-yard rushing touchdown kind of, if he doesn't get there, he doesn't really get there on the day.
100%.
It does look like the entire offense, he's getting the Pickens treatment. Like the entire offense goes through him. And if the offense does anything, he's going to have a decent day. Where like Ridley seems more immune to bad days than Terry McLaurin does.
Yeah.
And in this case, Jaden Reed. So by that example, that's why I'm saying Levis if he doesn't completely shit the bed, Levis actually can do stuff for fantasy, I think is the point I'm trying to make.
All right. No, I'm with you. I like Levis as a whole, but I it's hard to trust him anywhere starting wise.
We need to play the Giants, and then we'll know, because that's been our limit. Play the Giants or the Commanders, and we'll see how you do.
That you can do well. Yeah,
that's how you know you have a future or not. Yeah, that's going to be a recurring theme, I think, this year.
He's not a bad QB2 if you're looking for him, but he's a low end QB2 for me. So we'll wait and see how that goes. So to get into, let's get into our props real quick. I want to be able to get to your start sit questions here, guys. So our props here is, for me, higher than 2.5 receptions for Chig. I just have Chig Okonkwo. I do think he has an opportunity to do well here. Levis seems to like him a little bit more. He's a little bit more involved in the short intermediate routes for him. I just see a little bit more for him than I do for most of this particular team. So I'm going to stick with Chig at higher than 2.5 receptions.
Now, is this like a statistically, like you've gone into a player? This to me, this feels vibes. This is a vibey. I'm just kind of feeling it. Yeah. Every now and again, I have a couple of those.
Yeah. I don't have any real statistical information to get it there. I have a feeling.
I think those are my favorite bets of like that. I would love for someone to tell me why I'm in smart or not here, but this is a vibey bet for sure. Yeah. I got a good feeling for you, man.
Yeah.
I went with like the least vibey bets. Mine are so analytical, like boring. But I think they're positive EV. So get your checkbooks out here. I got Josh Jacobs higher than 38.5 first half rushing yards.
Okay, I like it.
This game can go in a lot of weird directions.
Yeah.
And the underdog threw it out, and they threw a first half rushing yard out there, and I'm like, great. I don't need the outcome. I just need like the first half to go the way I think it does. And I think Jacobs is going to run the ball 10 to 12 times in the first half, and I think he's going to average 4 yards carry. Okay. And if you do some simple math, that puts him in my projections much more in the mid 40s. So I'm just going to take this and say most of the time I think it's printing money in this particular game script. Now, I do think the Titans are actually, they have a decent run defense as demonstrated by the dismantling of the Bears.
No, they're very good.
Which
Jeffrey
is a thing.
Simmons stuffs that line, and you can't get by.
What happens in that case is, well, I think Jacobs might just get 12 or 13 carries in the first half, and then I only need 3 yards a carry to hit. And
exactly.
that's just not asking enough. And so I'm still running with it. Pun intended there.
That's a volume play, and to be honest, they're gonna just run the damn ball. It doesn't really matter. I think they're gonna just run it.
Or I'm betting just breaks one. You got to break one 10 to 12 yarder, and I think I'm home free on that bet, and I think he does. So we'll see how that goes. Same side of the ball. I just think they're gonna. It's weird. I'm betting rushing run overs, but I just think that's how this team's gonna operate, and I think it works. I like Malik Willis higher than 31.5 rushing yards.
This is conducive if he starts.
100% conducive if he starts.
Yeah,
I think it's not even a question. I definitely think he starts. I mean, they're playing the Titans too. Like, what are we really doing here? You know, like you should be able to win the game without Love. But if you bring Love back too early in this game, you guys are all getting fired. Like that's that's a bad look. Wait for a more strapping game. So I do think Willis gets the start and over 31.5 rushing yards. It's what he can do. And I think it's what you saw last week. You saw this is how I can contribute. This is how I can move the chains for the team.
He did very well.
And I think it worked. It got him a W. I don't know why they wouldn't go with it as well. And the number just feels really attainable. Like there's a lot of instances where he only gets to 33, 34, 35 on like 8 to 9 attempts.
Do you feel better about him or Carr getting 1.5 or 1.5 yards rushing?
I feel better about Willis only because I think like
fair enough. No, take off and run. What
kills me is like the Carr taking 3 kneels at the end of the game.
Yeah, I know.
Kill
and
that
just
bet
kill
sometimes, and that worries me. Or I'm like, I think my projections have Willis. This bet seems good for another 5 yards of wiggle room.
Oh yeah,
and that just seems pretty reasonable. So I'm going to stay with what I think is
analytically
boring, but pretty positive EV here.
All right, fair enough. So make sure you guys throw those questions in the chat. We're going to be getting to them at the very end of this particular breakdown of the game. If you do have a question you want answered right away, don't hesitate to hit that super chat. We will answer it right away. So we're going to be talking about the Broncos and the Buccaneers. So the Broncos are going to be heading to Tampa Bay to face the Buccaneers. Buccaneers are 6.5 point favorites. Over under is 41. I mean, we talked about him before, but Baker is a must start. He is an every week must start QB1. Start him every week. Next is going to be Godwin and Evans. Of course, you're going to be playing those two. He's attached to Baker. So I'm going to skip one guy that I think we should be starting for the Bucs as well, because there's a reason for it. But I'm going to go to the Broncos side of the ball. And I think one guy that you should be starting this week is Javonte Williams. I feel positive about this.
Because the injury to Vita Vea.
And that is why. Because Vita Vea is doubtful. He
hasn't practiced all week. He's not playing.
He is doubtful. And right now, he is the big reason why I like Javonte here. Sean Payton's offense loves to run the damn ball, and they are part of any offense that has involved Sean Payton. The running back does well. I'm telling you now, Javonte has the ability to do that. They're going to find. I hope they exploit that particular, problem in this.
Sean
case.
Payton's too smart of a coach not to be
I hope so.
The big, the threat that stops me from doing the thing I want to do is out for the week.
Exactly.
Like if this team's ever you don't run in the Bucs, and this is the 1 week you might be able to run on the Bucs. So yeah, I think that's it's a snazzy call for I'm a Javonte owner in a couple of places. It felt gross, but he fell in drafts a lot, and I needed something usable. And I'm in that man, I don't even want to use him when I have to use him. This is the matchup where I'm like, no, if it's gross, I like him over Singletary, who has a pretty abysmal matchup. And I think if it's close between him and a wide receiver, the chance that he falls into the end zone because the running game just kind of is actually pretty sticky and works this week. I think it's pretty reasonable. He could have pretty good volume. He could have 60, 70 rushing yards, and I think that's within the range of outcomes. Yeah.
Oh yeah, 100%. The next guy for that, the one person I was talking about is right on my fence right now for starting and sitting, and that's Rachaad White. I was very high on Rachaad White in the beginning of the year. I was very happy with, what he did last season. Thought that could continue this year. It hasn't really been, we haven't really seen that. Right now, Bucky Irvin is, of course, eating into it a little bit, but also it's because Rachaad was hurt. He had a groin injury that he's been nursing. He did practice. He is available. There is no tag on him, so he will play. But of course, groin injuries can be affected and can reoccur. So it's definitely something to keep an eye on. Do you play either one of these guys in this matchup?
I mean, Irving looks like he came back into the game. He was healthy at the end of it. It looked like he had enough practice activity.
Okay.
He's going to be fine. With how he's involved in the passing game, you kind of just have to fire him up. There's not a roster I'm privy to where I can afford to sit him. And if you can, you're already winning a title, so it's not really worth talking about it, right?
Javonte or White?
White for sure. I mean, this is a guy that he actually has the ceiling for like 7 catches and decent catches at that. So I think I'm still starting White, even with the plus matchup for Javonte. I think White's getting more valuable touches. Even if he got 20 rushing yards, I'm still firing up White because I think his involvement in the passing game is too valuable until I see it slipping too far down.
Okay. What about Charbonnet? Charbonnet or White?
Charbonnet or White? There I think I'm actually going Charbonnet because I'm less on White. I'm higher on Bucky. Charbonnet can do it all, but I think a little bit better, a little more efficient.
Fair enough. What about Cam Akers or Rachaad White?
Still going to stay with Rachaad White over Akers.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. What about Brian Robinson Jr. against Cincinnati?
Ooh, that's where I can't tell if it's like a hot take or if it's just actually normal in the rankings, but I have Brian Robinson pretty comfortably ahead of him. I really liked the usage that I saw. I think the running game just really works for that team. So no, I'm going Brian Robinson over White, even with the, in straight PPR, it gets a lot closer, but I'm still going B-Rob.
Okay. Fair enough. I think in this game, you're pretty much sitting Bo Nix for now. He's definitely looked good. I personally think he's one of the better rookie quarterbacks that have been playing. I think he's been playing pretty well. He's not playing great, but he's playing at a higher level than I think that the others are. I think he's able to spread the ball out and do pretty well. He's not fantasy relevant. He's more.
The tough part is the way he plays is better for the NFL than for fantasy. So 100%. It's like the arrow's way farther down for fantasy relevance than it is for real life relevance. But we're here talking fantasy for the most part, not into dynasty rants right now, where his arrow might be okay. But it means relevancy this year, even in Superflex, is pretty non-existent.
Yeah, and Sutton as well, unfortunately. I do like Sutton as a player. It's just unfortunately with Nix not being able to, force the ball downfield like we want to, you can't really play Sutton. But how do you feel about these receiving options for the Broncos in general? One guy that's going to be coming back from injury is, I got to remember how to pronounce his name. This is going to be a harder one for me. I think it's Veal or not.
Oh, the rookie. I think
rookie
he's a
wide receiver, 7th round pick.
Devon Vele.
Valley or Veal or whatever.
I'll have to get the pronunciation on that one. Maybe he'll do something. I have to find it. We'll catch him on Red Zone on Sunday. But
either way,
check down King. I think he was like 8 for 8, and I think his first game he was really yards. A lot of really close to the line of scrimmage stuff. But looks like it's repeatable. I mean, I picked him up in some PPR leagues where I thought he might continue that. It looks like he might. So just guys
he's out with a rib, and then he's back.
If he's back, I think all the receivers are just totally toast.
Reynolds.
Because the thing that props up Javonte is he is catching 5 balls a game at this point.
Yeah.
I like Javonte as a buy low because I think in PPR he's actually just going to have a hell of a floor with how much they're going to pass to the running backs between him and Jaleel for sure. But I think I'm not trusting any of the Broncos pass catchers probably for the rest of the season. I'm jumping ship without recovery. It's just they're not going to put up 200 passing yards most weeks. Yeah. I think everything's going to be close to line of scrimmage, and they're going to win ugly the few times they win, which won't be often.
Okay. Fair enough. So we're going to go right into our props for this one. For me, it's going to be lower than 12.15 fantasy points for Rashad White.
Love it.
As we said, I'm just not feeling it. I actually have him pretty low. For me, like you said, he's probably around the 24 mark for me, which is a running back, low end RB2, maybe a flex.
I doubt he's on the field in the fourth quarter if the game goes the way it's supposed to.
Yeah, and that was my other thought. So for me, I'm pretty low on him in general in this game, so I'm going to be picking the lower here. One of my rare lowers.
I like it. You got to pick it at some point.
I
right?
got to get one.
I like it. I'm sticking with this is going to be you're going to hear this every single week until the rest of the betting market starts agreeing with me, and then no one gets to make any more money. So no one listen, and I can keep making money on this one.
There you go.
But Godwin in the slot is just an absolute target animal. I played him in DFS everywhere, printed money on him last week. I think I said it was one of my favorite bets on the slate last week. So hopefully you guys jumped on that last week. We did good on that one. But I got Godwin higher than 5.5 catches. I like that number a lot. I mean, my projections for him rest of season pretty much have 6 catches as a bad game for him. I think he's going to average more like 7.5, almost 8 with the amount of targets he's going to have. He just is that offense. That offense runs through the air. He's extremely reliable. And the second you take your eye off of him to Evans is just too good to not get the attention that he does. That Godwin is like the necessary evil you're gonna live with a lot more. And 6 is just, it's going to be free at this point. I'm parlaying that with over 64.5 receiving yards too, just because his ADOT's been reasonable enough that he's not doing like 5.5. He's not doing 6 catches for 50 yards. He's going to get enough meat on the bone there that if I believe what I believe about him, he's got the season that he does. This is just a bad number until it gets a little more adjusted later on. So I'm going there. And you had a bet. I'll let you take it. You should take it because I think it's a great bet if it's allowed. I think they take it off the board. The Baker rushing yards.
Oh, they did take it off.
A great find.
I was so upset. They took it off. That's why I couldn't do it. They had I don't know. I think it was 8 rushing yards. Yeah, 8.5.
Yeah, Baker. It was higher, lower than 8.5 rushing yards.
And they took it away.
With them dialing up an actual QB draw for a touchdown, I think he had 34 rushing yards or something like that. This was this is a steal, dude.
Oh,
what a find!
I love Baker. Yeah. I'm a big fan. I've always been, a big fan after he left Cleveland. I thought he had a rough go, but at the end of the day, I still, I think he's a fun QB to watch overall. So, That being said, we're gonna move into our live Q&A. So please make sure you guys drop all your questions in the chat, and we will answer them right now so that you guys have your questions answered. This is going to be sponsored by Trophy Smack. Make sure you guys check out trophysmack.com. Use promo code GetRight. I know that we're already in season, but think of the end of your season when you can win a wonderful trophy or a Kirk Cousins chain, one of their customized belts, which is awesome, one of their best sellers, as well as their custom rings as well. If you guys stay tuned to the next show on part 2, you'll get to see Rasta with his ring, most likely. So Kendall will be right back. I'm going to answer a couple of your questions, so don't worry. And we're going to get right to it. So, look at that. It's Jeezy. What up, Jeezy? So we're going to answer your question. I'm going to be starting at the very top, so don't worry. For those that throw their questions in at the bottom, we will get to your questions, I promise. So Emily Kohler goes, what's up, everybody? Would you trade Derrick Henry and Evan Ingram for Josh Jacobs and Jake Ferguson? At this point, if it's redraft, I am on board with this. I have no problem doing that. I do like Josh Jacobs and Ferguson a little bit better. Ingram's going to have another at least 2 to 3 weeks that he's going to need to come back. Jake Ferguson will be playing in this game. He had a full participation in this particular week of practice, so he will be there. Derrick Henry, I'm just not sold on yet. I'm a little upset in a few of my leagues because I do have him and I needed to start him. Game script, he is game script dependent, unfortunately. So it makes him a little bit harder to roster. So At this point, let me get Kendall. Kendall got right back here. So what's up, Kendall? So would you trade Derrick Henry and Evan Ingram for Josh Jacobs and Jake Ferguson?
Would I trade away Henry and Ingram? I get back Jacobs and Ferguson.
I said yes.
Yes, I would. The offensive line problems aren't going away.
Ravens
Jacobs only goes better, huge usage, plus the offense only gets better.
Yeah.
Jacobs could actually be like, I don't think he's going to be a league winner category for me, but he's going to be in like a very positive advance rate, player
100%.
like that got value. I don't think Derrick Henry has a miraculous. They figure it out. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I'm definitely taking that. And Jake Ferguson, I do think is going to be pretty good when he's back and healthy.
Yeah.
That offense gives me a little more hope than Ingram when he gets back. I mean, their team's going to need him, but I don't think the team has a ton of upside right now at quarterback. I like Dak as the better talent. So, I would do the trade. Very even. Normally these are pretty snappy, but that's pretty
a good
close.
Even trade. Yeah. So Nino Pena goes, this is a trade that he was asking about before. He goes, I'd be trading away Jamar, Monty, Brian Robinson Jr., and likely for Gibbs, DK, Walker, Charbonnet, and Goddard. That's a lot to ingest right there. So I want to be sure it's Jamar Gibbs comparatively to
Jamar
Chase, but I'm assuming it's Gibbs just because. Wait.
No, because he's got Gibbs in there.
No, he's got Gibbs in there. So that's Jamar Chase. So Jamar Chase, Monty, B-Rob, and likely. 4, Gibbs, DK, Walker, Charbs, and Goddard. Ooh. It's very even.
He's getting Kenneth Walker and Sharp, so he's just getting the running back one there.
Yeah, he's just grabbing Seattle's running game. He's getting DK with that, and then Gibbs on his own with Goddard. I mean, he's getting the second half
from Jamar to DK, from Monty up to Gibbs.
I don't think you really. I don't know if you do this. I think you just keep what you have
up to Walker.
I think it's a little much. In my opinion, I think it's something where you kind of stay with what you got. Give Jamar another week. Monty is still viable. Robinson.
If Kenneth Walker wasn't coming off of an injury, where I don't know what happens, and Sharp's great, but I think the Sharp plus Kenneth Walker side has lost enough value. Where like now the rest of season for them is like Walker was just injured. They're going to split the carries more between Walker and Sharps. With them vulturing each other, it doesn't make them that much dramatically better than Brian Robinson. And so you got to keep the Jamar Chase upside. I think that upside's still like league winning, and I think I'm gonna let that play out. Yeah, I'm keeping.
Fair enough. So next is Jason. He goes, "What's up, fellas? Kittle out, Gesicki, Strange, Parkinson, or Kittle backup Eric S. I'm assuming Eric Strange, or there is Taysom Hill. So for me, it's Gesicki. I like Gesicki in this particular team. What about you?
So it's between Gesicki and Parkinson for me.
Yeah.
It's pretty close. If Higgins plays, that's Parkinson easy.
Yeah. I still think Gesicki is going to be involved.
Yeah, no, I think Gesicki got a touch banged up, and because it was a hamstring, that's always an injury that gives me the most pause out of anything at a position that's already tough to begin with and can get moved around quite a bit. I just think Parkinson's going to be heavily involved in the Rams. I think he's probably going to have 6-7 targets. Gesicki has the better upside. Parkinson, I think, is probably going to average out to have the better game. So if you just need a few points to get you over the edge, I'm going to go Parkinson. If you actually need like someone who can put up a real game, I'd go Gesicki.
Okay. Fair enough. So next we have, hold on one sec. Oh, sorry, I skipped Warrior Loft. So Warrior Loft goes, are you guys worried about Patrick Mahomes? Should I trade him and Jerome Ford for Josh Allen? I'm not against doing that, but I'm a little nervous about Josh Allen long term. just because I think they're going to try to keep him a little bit pulled back a little bit more on a short leash. But he's still who he is. So it's kind of hard not to take a trade like that. And you're only getting rid of Ford, which is really not much. So I'd be okay with it. I'm a little nervous about it, but I'm okay with it.
I mean, I feel better about Mahomes now that Pacheco is injured. Like
they're gonna have to. Yeah.
All those rushing touchdowns now probably become passing touchdowns for Mahomes. I already thought their passing game was like my season-long projections are still really strong. Kelsey and him started off on a weird note, but at the same time, they also are going to have a way more passing plays above expectation with how unstoppable that slant to Rashee Rice is looking. Worthy is going to get better and better as the season goes on. So I think if anything, it's like they were going to become pass heavy, but they were going to lean on Pacheco to balance it out. Now they don't have Pacheco.
Yeah.
I think they're going to have to win all the games. Honestly, I'm not worried about Mahomes. The amount of like the rushing game and the defense for the Bills right now tell me, look, Allen's still going to have some big games, but his ceiling is way lower. And I think his ceiling's lower than Mahomes at this point. Like Mahomes can still have a pretty epic season where I feel like Allen got brought back a little down to earth. I wouldn't give up Mahomes plus value for Josh Allen. I think right now, but there's even from a standpoint of just give Mahomes 2 extra weeks with Pacheco out and watch what could happen. And I think he's going to at least his price is going to get raised because of how good he looks over the next 2 weeks with just the passing volume numbers. Then if you want to flip him, I think, I'm even questioning, like, is the Allen owner throwing out Allen and Ford? Because I don't even know if you get that done right now, but give it a couple weeks, and if you want it, you definitely can.
Yeah, for sure. So we're going to be answering your questions a little quick, just because we need to wrap things up before we get to our other show at 11 o'clock. So just be aware, we're going to get through these real quick. So Trex goes, should I trade Kamara and Higgins for A.J. Brown and Josh Jacobs? I'd have CeeDee Lamb and A.J. Brown in a 12-team full PPR league.
Ooh, wow. Yeah, I would. I would do this. A.J. Brown comes back healthy, and you end up with Higgins. Just worries me, dude. I feel like if you can go from Higgins up to A.J. Brown,
100%.
Kamara doesn't have to be that much better than Jacobs.
No.
And if anything, I'm doing that trade.
I'm okay with that. If that's available, take it. I like it. Definitely would take that trade. So next is I had Tua, and my backups are Hall, Steele, Mason, Aaron Jones, Allen, and Algier. Should I trade White and Bucky for Anthony Richardson and Tank Bigsby, or grab Fields, Geno off waivers?
That's interesting.
I would probably stick with Geno. I would probably grab like Geno, but honestly, I don't mind the Bucky and White trade for Anthony Richardson and Bigsby, but it's a little one-sided, and I do think that the White side kind of overtakes the other. I would be okay with playing Geno and running with what you got so far.
Yeah, I guess the way I'd answer this is if you, I don't know, like the rest of your team entirely.
Yeah, that's why it's hard.
If you think you're still like league winning, just regular, I think Geno is going to be an elite waiver wire pickup. He's going to be quite good, probably good enough. That being said, if you think your team is lacking, I do like the idea of trading away Rachaad White because I don't think it gets better for him the rest of the way. So I think it's a good trade candidate, and A-Rich is a league-winning type of player, where if he hits in the way he can hit, yeah, he can finish as the overall QB1, and it could be ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
So I will say part of me says when you have the option to go for league-winning trades, if you don't think you're there, you should try to make moves in that direction. And it might be the lowest buy window for A-Rich possibly. So I think I would do it. Just because I want to trade Rachaad White as soon as I can, because I think his value dips to a particular point. There might be better trades that I like for him, but I would do the A-Rich, even though we're generally saying Geno is a great. Yeah, I would rather pick up Geno
until
and
Tua comes back.
Like flip White for a wide receiver we're high on, and then play Geno. That's the optimal play. But if nothing else can happen, yeah, adding a Rich is more league winning than keeping White, I think.
Yeah, and you already have a good stack of running backs that I understand why you're trying to get rid of him. So
Yeah,
I'm not against it, but
Mason and Brees rest of the way with like Aaron Jones as like your RB3.
Exactly.
That feels like it's good enough.
And even Jones as a flex option. I mean, I don't hate it. It's one of those things where I personally would rather roll with Geno and just get Tua back when you do. I mean, he should be back in 2-3 weeks. Or no, he's on IR, so he'll be back in 4. So either way, I'm still rolling with Geno, and I'd be okay with it. But I get it. I understand both ends of it. So if anything, wait until the next show. Ask the guys, on the next show that we have at part 2 with Rasta and Phil. They're going to be going over the Seattle game, and they can definitely give you a little perspective on Seattle moving forward. Next, we have G. Drew going Malik Neighbors or Chris Godwin. Quick answer.
This week? Holy shit, that's really close.
Yeah, I'm going to be
Godwin.
I'm going Godwin here.
The matchup is just too brutal, I think. And
Godwin's getting second. He's going to get the second corner compared to Malik Neighbors going against Denzel Ward. Just have to do it that way. So Raven show you what's going on, man. He goes, Higgins is slated to play Monday as of right now, but can I trust him? Full PPR, I need one flex. Higgins or Shakir.
Even if he's active, I'm taking Shakir over.
I'm taking Shakir regardless.
With how little practice he's had, and Shakir actually looking like the go-to. No, this is an easy Shakir.
Yeah, I'm going Shakir without a problem. Next, we have Patrick. He goes full PPR flex 1. So we're picking 1. Juwan Jennings, Jalen Waddle, Akers, or Higgins. Who are you going with? I know who I'm going with, and that's Akers.
It's close between Waddle and Akers. I'm going to take Waddle, though.
See, my biggest thing with that is he's got Skylar Thompson as the quarterback. I don't trust him. He's like Easton Stick. And it lowers Tyreek Hill. It lowers Waddle a lot for me. For me, it's Akers, and I can't even tell you. I once I saw those, I'm like, Akers done, because I know he's guaranteed the touch. Anytime,
I like it. It just, for me, I have to respect the range of outcomes for Akers. That it's
Understood.
50% Akers, 50% Ogunbowale. Neither gets in the end zone, and they just both have decent games.
Yeah.
Where like I still think Waddle has like a PPR upside of Waddle can actually be like the close to the line of scrimmage answer.
Hopefully.
More so than Tyreek. And I see some outcomes for Waddle where they have the type of weapons that can really elevate a not so good quarterback. And I'm not saying it can happen, but
going against Wallen and Witherspoon, who are 2 of the better corners in the league, I'm sticking with Akers. That's just me though.
It's closer than I have to admit. Maybe a part of me could find a 500 IQ play to go Akers there, but I don't know that I could do it.
For me, it's even more like Jennings and Akers, and it's only really because they're facing the Rams and the fact that, Jennings does pretty well when there's been at least one of the two.
Well, with Kittle out now too, honestly, I think Jennings
is.
I changed my mind actually. I'm just straight up going with Jennings. With Kittle out in a game that I think is going to be a very patented get-right game for Purdy, where I think the offense clicks in a better way. I don't see where that Jennings doesn't have 6 catches for like 40, 50 yards. Actually give me Jennings. Yeah.
I'm not against that. I prefer Akers because I want the guaranteed touch. But Jennings I don't hate. So Dangerous Toys, what's going on, man? He goes 10-team I'm assuming PPR flex. Pickens, Pollard, or Brian Robinson Jr. I'm going with Pollard.
I'm going with Pollard as well.
Yeah, that one I don't even have.
Pollard's looking pretty real, man. He looks good. He's getting the opportunities, but he's earning them. It wasn't like he was earning the opportunities before Spears got injured. Spears getting injured is just icing on the cake. He's looking like a legitimate, like solid RB2.
Yeah, for sure. So Dub Nation goes, need one for the flex. Zach Moss, Jordan Pickens, Brian Thomason Jr., Waddle, or Deontay Johnson, or Ford. I'm going to lean Ford, and it's really matchup based, and it's full PPR, so I'm a little more inclined to do that.
I think, it's PPR. I think I'm still going Pickens.
Yeah.
I think he's got the easiest path to 5 or 6 catches above everyone, and Yeah, I think he's there. Brian Thomas is actually my close second. I think
Yeah.
BTJ, but if it were half PPR, he'd be better.
Yeah.
Pickens is a better version of BTJ in his offense, so that's why I'm going that direction. Good question, though.
J.K. Dobbins or ETN? I'm going to go
ETN.
Dobbins.
ETN, because Tank's a little banged up right now. I think ETN just has to be everything for that team.
Going against the Bills.
Yeah, I still like ETN's usage. I think the average game for Dobbins, I like Dobbins. I have to go ETN as the better talent in the better situation. Dobbins has the better matchup, but I think ETN, it's more matchup proof with how he's going to be used on that team. Damn, that's close though. If that's a decision you have to make, that's an insane team you're at.
Yeah, for sure. For those that are watching right now, don't worry. If you guys are going to be, once we're done here, it's going to bring you right over to our part two show. So we're going to run through these as quick as we can so we can get you guys over to Phil and Rasta at part 2. So don't worry. We're going to answer your questions.
Here. Okay.
Yeah, we're going to make this as quick as we can because we want to make sure you guys get over to them as much as we want to answer your questions. So we got Sean versus Sean. He goes, thoughts on Kamara, sell while value is high or hold? I'm holding.
I'm trying to sell high because I think it's a good exercise to always try.
Oh, always try, but I'm holding.
What some people could, there's the potential for the owner that had Kamara back in the day for the Christmas Day game where it's like 64 fantasy points. Kamara's selling high is higher than an average sell high in how spicy some people will be on him. I am going to attempt to sell high. Probably end up holding because I'm only going to trade for something pretty serious. But so many people are so just mentally battered from how many injuries have happened. This is a good time to try and get a crazy ass deal done. I would try to sell high.
Okay. Dangerous Toys goes Brenton Strange at tight end or Kincaid. I'm going Kincaid.
Trust the process.
Give it a minute.
Kincaid also had 2 catches in 2 minutes. He was on pace to have a 10 catch game.
Yeah.
And he got a little banged up and the game got out of hand. Kincaid, they want Kincaid involved. If those 2 catches came over the course of 2 quarters, it would change my mind. The catches happened in like a minute 30. Kincaid.
So Joe Ortiz goes 1 running back, 1 flex. Full PPR. Tyler Johnson, Akers, or Kyren Williams. I'm going Kyren and Akers, and it's not even close.
Oh, if it's you got to pick 2 out of them, same. Kyren Akers.
Yeah, go with what you know. Kyle Murray or Derek Carr, full PPR.
Kyler.
Yeah,
great
I'm going
matchup.
Kyler Murray. Great matchup. Love the whole scenario. Steve 562, what's going on, Steve? Welcome to the show. If you haven't already, make sure you guys subscribe and like the channel. If you haven't, I have a tight end situation with Ingram out. Drop Blake Corum or Samaje Perine to pick up Kraft or Kmet.
Drop Corum. Just remember, Kyron's getting 90% of the usage, so he is a low-end handcuff, not a high-end anymore. The offense is decimated, so he's not even guaranteed, like...
You're keeping Perine.
You're keeping Perine. Just Corum, just trust me, the whole narrative is dead for Corum. It's not his fault. The team is dust already.
Yeah.
Who would you pick up between Kraft or Kmet?
I mean, Kmet is definitely ranked higher. Kraft, I don't trust.
I'm going Kmet. With Keenan out, Kmet could take a more elevated role. He has the highest chance to end up in the end
Kmet
zone.
Definitely has the highest.
I'd go Kmet.
All right. And last but not least for Robert Thomas, he goes Akers or Montgomery?
Monty.
Yeah, I'm always going to lean Monty with that line. I'm sorry. I like Akers a
plus
lot.
Arizona's not exactly like a plus on the defensive side of the ball, and Monty could really have a nice, efficient game.
Yeah, not a problem. And last but not least, we got one more question going through. I love it. Make sure you guys check out Rasta and Phil on the next show. They're going to be, they're probably already started. So we're trying to wrap this up. Not Asian. He's going, would you trade DK for Kenneth Walker trade DK for Kenneth Walker and Demarcus Robinson? No.
Probably not. No. Walker, when he's healthy, is looking pretty elite. So no, I don't think I would do that. And DeMarcus, I think, is just like, it's really DK for Kenneth Walker is what I'm looking at here, and it's not enough for me.
Yeah, I definitely can't do it.
Unless you were like, I could see an argument where if you were just toast at running back and you had more replaceable production, then I could make the roster construction argument, but in most rosters now.
Yeah, honestly, it's going to linger for Kenneth Walker. He's had this injury for quite some time, and it just keeps flaring up. That just means at one point it ain't going to be there anymore, and he's going to be hurt. I'm not willing to do that. DK is a better option. So thank you, everybody, for watching. I really, me and Kendall both really do appreciate it. I hope everyone had a wonderful time. Please make sure you guys check out Rasta and Phil. They are going to be right after us. So don't worry if you're in here. It's going to bring you right over there. So you guys can watch them. They're going to do the last part of this particular grouping. It's going to be mostly the 4 o'clock games and the late games. We have 2 Monday night games, so don't forget that as well. Beyond that, I really appreciate everyone being here. Thank you for everybody that has been in the chat and helping out and giving us your questions. Really do appreciate that. Make sure you guys are checking out our other shows as well as Kendall's show, the Fantasy Football Tavern. He will have some stuff out as well. We have Phil at the Extra Point who's been chiming in, as well as the Fantasy Boardroom for Tycoon. So make sure you guys are checking that out. This is our weekly schedule. For those that are new to the show, please check this out. This is our weekly schedule. We are here every day, all the time. I'm going to be back on Sunday morning at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern. I'll be here to help you guys with actives and inactives to get you guys ready for week 3. I'll get you all the up-to-date information going into that particular into week 3. So for everybody here, for good old Kendall, thank you for joining me today. Thank you. Can't appreciate. I mean, I love having you here, man. I love doing this every week with you. So thank you so much for joining us. Anything you want to say before we get going?
Just the typical, but seriously, always feels good. For any of you guys that aren't subscribed, helps a bunch. I'm like almost at 200 subscribers, so
get it in, boys.
Small goals here, but it all helps. So trying to get monetized over on my end. So if any of you guys aren't subbed to my channel as well, please and thank you. And classic dude, always. This is becoming my favorite way to spend my Friday night, man, is hanging out, talking about the games with you. Good crowd today too. Hopefully we can keep growing that a little bit. Great questions in chat. I look forward to a few more spicy ones.
And Jeezy, I already teased this before you weren't here, but yes, make sure you guys keep an eye out for a Saturday show. We have a little special something that might be coming down the pipe. Not Asian, just to throw this out there. Appreciate it if it's Javonte instead of DeMarcus. I'm still not taking it. Just not willing to. I don't like it. Sebastian goes trade Ridley and Dobbins for Ayuk. Last one. No, definitely not. No, I'm okay with what I got, and let's wait another week on Ayuk. It's just not the right time. Just give it time.
Even if Ayuk would have to blow up something severe, I don't think that's going to happen, man. Dobbins is pretty elite, dude.
Yeah, I'm liking it. So, thank you for everybody that joined. For those that are still watching, don't worry. We're going to send you right off to Phil and Rasta. Which them, say hi to them. Make sure you guys throw your questions in there for them. They're going to answer it for you. Hope everyone has a wonderful week 3, unless it's against me. I will see you guys on Sunday morning. Good luck to everybody. For Frank, for Dustin, for Tycoon, for Kendall, for Phil, for Rasta. We got so many people here. I love it. Hope everyone has a wonderful week 3. We'll see you later, boys and girls. Peace.
Wanted to write fantasy is the play. Marking often, but I tune in every Friday. Strategies provided, I will lock in every way. So go